Nothing will crush a real estate investor's spirit like landlord stress. The difference between being successful and miserable in managing properties is education. Welcome to Landlord University, where landlords learn. Landlord University is recorded from inside the RentPrep office, where Stephen White and Jeff Pearson share the lessons learned from working with some of the most successful landlords.
Welcome to Landlord University Night School. I'm Jeff Pearson. I'm here with my co-host, Stephen White. Hello, Stephen. How are you doing this evening?
Hey, Jeff, pretty good. So we've got a new segment potentially. It's the first one of its kind, but I think that we could probably run across enough situations to continue to fill this segment.
I think you're right. Yeah.
Yeah, it's called Tenant Scam Alert. And the latest case that we'll bring you is something that we've been noticing sort of trending here in dealing with so many background checks, and you start to pick up on just things that are happening, and you start to see sort of this pattern evolving. And so we're seeing this happening now. And it's a lot like like a Craigslist scam. If you ever log into Craigslist and there's some you know scam that's happening right now or trending, Craigslist a lot of times will put a little alert or notification and say, hey, keep an eye out for this situation. So sort of along those same lines, we ran into a situation where it just kept on happening. We kept hearing the same story. And what it is I call it the case of the independently wealthy applicant. This is where the applicant comes to the landlord and says, I want to rent your unit. I'm going to fill out the application, but here's a couple of things that you need to know. I'm not employed because I'm independently wealthy. And all my money is being held in offshore accounts, or being held with, in this case, it was offshore, a combination of offshore accounts and with his financial advisor. And I think it may have been Charles Schwab or something like that.
Okay.
So the guy says, you have there's no way for you to verify what my income is, but I have this letter from my financial advisor. And the letter, basically, I saw the letter, I read through it. It was a very generic letter. And the letter said basically that he had done business with this guy for over 10 years, and he could write a check for over $1 million. And I swear to you, it even had the words in there, independently wealthy. And so, of course, there was all these red flags that sort of jumped out at me. And I thought, well, I can't imagine any financial advisor in the world writing a letter saying, my client's independently wealthy, don't worry about him, type of a thing. So that was the number one, type of alert that went off there. But a number of other things. The guy also mentioned that he wasn't comfortable giving up his social security number because he was afraid that the IRS would be able to basically track him down, because he was under the impression that whenever he used his social security number, it would create a record. And now the IRS would be able to track him down and find him, which, again, another huge red flag. Why would somebody be dodging the IRS?
Yes.
He was claiming it was because he was independently wealthy and he didn't want to give up, all this money that he had. Right. So, again, as I'm going through the story, it seems really obvious that it's a scam. But to the landlord, especially this landlord who is brand new, talking about a newbie landlord, it was her first situation where she was screening. She ran into this, and the guy did a good enough job to present himself well, and she bought it and believed it. But there was enough suspicion there that she had called us and said, hey, what do you guys think about this? So lo and behold, we end up running the background check. We found the social security number, which we can often do anyhow. So we were able to find all the guy's information in his records. And just for the record, also, we have no connection with the IRS, so it doesn't matter if we have the social security number or not. I mean, it's not like we're calling the IRS saying, hey, we got his social security number. Here you guys go. So we run the guy's information, and turns out he's got over $40,000 in tax liens. He had about 12 judgments against him, and he was just in, terrible financial shape. I mean, from a background check perspective. And so the most obvious question is if you're financially wealthy or independently wealthy, you could write a check for over $1 million. Why do you have a $40,000 tax lien against you?
Exactly.
Why do you have these judgments? And the judgments ranged from, a $1,500 credit card judgment for not paying a credit card bill to, I think probably like a $6,000 or $7,000 hospital bill in there. So they ranged. They were all over the place, all kinds of weird stuff, but usually pretty small amounts. Especially if you were a millionaire, I don't think these would be big deals for you. You would just pay them.
Yeah, obviously he was just trying to come up with a way to keep somebody from doing a background check on him, and he knew that he couldn't pass a background check to be able to rent.
Absolutely, and give the landlord a lot of credit that especially being a newbie, she knew enough to say, wait a minute, something might be fishy here.
Right.
But had she not ran that background check, I feel like you got a lot of problems there.
Yes.
Down the road, big problems too. And a couple of the other things that ended up not lining up. Now, this has nothing to do with the scam, but just to sort of tell you the character of the type of person that's doing this. We found that the letterhead that the letter from the financial advisor was written on was totally fake. The financial advisor, he existed, but he had no knowledge of this guy. So he just looked him up online, found a guy, found an address, created his own letterhead. And I'm sure it's probably working for some landlords
Yeah.
who would take that and just say, okay, fine. So what these people are looking for usually, and same thing with the Craigslist ads, I think it's a numbers game for a lot of them. They expect for it to not work a lot of the times, but they also know that there's going to be some people that just won't do their diligence and will turn a cheek to it and say, okay, fine. And those are the people and those are the ones that they're looking for sure.
Right. And one of the problems that you have to think about with this is if he's willing to run the way he's been running and not pay his bills and has all of those judgments, then when it comes time for you to evict him because he's not paying his rent, he's going to fight you to the bitter end.
Absolutely.
And it's going to end up costing you time and money to evict him and have the sheriff come out, and you're going to have to go through that entire process because he's going to be trying to run that scam on the next landlord until he finds that landlord. He's going to keep living there and fighting you on the eviction.
Right. Now, in you're absolutely right on that. And another thing to point out is, dealing with this specific situation and this landlord that I was talking to, her gut reaction, it was funny to hear this too firsthand, especially as a newbie, her gut reaction, she was just so enraged that somebody was trying to do this. And she wanted to know legally what her next step was. Should she decline him and call him out on the letter and tell him that she knew that it was fake and all this other stuff. And I simply said, listen, as a landlord, what you want to always do is remove yourself emotionally. So forget the idea that that you are almost taken advantage of. You got to let that go. And look at this just from a procedural point of view. And from the basic procedure standpoint, he filled out an application. He marked on there that he had no judgments. He had no liens against him. He had no financial issues. You ran the background check and you found that he did. End of story. I said I wouldn't even bring up the financial advisor stuff, the letter stuff. There's no point. You're just wasting time, and you're doing it to prove yourself right. And in the end, it's not going to do you any good. Just stick with the letter of the law, which is tell him why he was denied. In this case, it was because his information that he provided was not true.
Exactly.
just as the rental application should have a little disclosure on there that says, I agree that all the information I provided is true and accurate. If it's not, it's a means for disqualification. Well, there it is. He was disqualified from being considered because he didn't, he wasn't forthcoming on all of the information that was out there about him.
That's right. And it goes back to what we keep talking about. Run this as a business.
Yep.
You have to take the emotion out. And
Yep.
when you do that, then you can have a situation like this. Yeah, certainly you're going to get frustrated. You're going to be upset that somebody tried to do this to you. But at the same time, when it comes to protecting yourself and treating this like a business, just the facts.
Yep.
Document it, put it in your records, and let him know. Thanks, but no thanks.
Yeah.
You're declined because your information was false.
And the last thing I'll bring up on this, which I thought was a really good point as well, another big concern that she had was that this person who is obviously now known to be a scam artist or some person who's trying to deceive everybody, he had all of her information. She was concerned that he had her cell phone number. I don't know about her home address, but for some reason I seem to think that she was concerned about her home address or something. But my whole point to her was, listen, it's really important that you create that barrier that we always talk about professionally and personally. I said, you want to consider getting a Google number, right? Or
That's right.
some number that's not your cell phone number. And this is a perfect example. Now you're dealing with somebody that is a scam artist, somebody that is going to take information that, you know, he shouldn't take and use it in ways that he shouldn't use. And I wouldn't want that guy to have my phone number either.
Exactly. Yeah. So get a Google Voice number, use a different email address for each property. And again, those email addresses, you can just forward them directly to the email address that you use all the time. So you don't have to go to a different account.
Yep.
You can go into the Google settings and say, forward any email from this to my other email address, and it's done.
Yep.
And then you've put that separation between you and all of these people. And then once you have a tenant, then you can decide whether or not you want to give them your true email address. But there's really no need for it.
No.
Because if it's